Let's find out what happens when a simple jewelry store robbery goes terribly wrong. The story begins at a diner where 8 men sit around a table. Crime boss Joe Cabot has assembled this crew of strangers for a jewelry store robbery. Joe uses color-coded aliases to protect their identities. Mr. White, the veteran criminal, Mr. Orange, the nervous young man, Mr. Pink, the paranoid professional, Mr. Blonde, the unpredictable ex-convict, Mr. Brown, Mr. Blue, and Joe's son, Eddie. Joe explains the plan. They will rob a jewelry store during a diamond shipment. The job should be simple and clean. But before this meeting, Mr. Orange has been working undercover for months to infiltrate Joe's organization. His real name is Freddie Neuendijk, and he's a police officer. Working with his handler, Detective Holdaway, Orange created a false identity as a drug dealer. Holdaway coaches Orange on criminal behavior and street language. He tells Orange he must know this stuff by heart because one mistake means death. Orange practices elaborate stories about fictional criminal activities until they become second nature. The most important story involves a marijuana deal that went wrong in a public restroom. Orange memorizes every detail, every mannerism, every emotional beat. He practices the story dozens of times in front of a mirror. He rehearses his facial expressions and hand gestures until the delivery sounds completely natural. When Orange finally tells this bathroom story to Joe's crew, his performance is flawless. Joe and his men believe every word, and Orange gains their complete trust. On the morning of the heist, the crew meets one final time. Joe gives final instructions while Eddie reviews escape routes. Each man knows his role and his color-coded name. The robbery begins at the jewelry store, but something goes wrong immediately. The police are waiting for them. The response is too coordinated, too perfect. Someone has betrayed them to the authorities. A massive shootout erupts. Mr. Brown is killed by police gunfire during the chaos. Mr. Blue tries to escape but gets caught 3 blocks away and dies in another shootout with officers. Mr. Orange hijacks a car to flee the scene but gets shot in the stomach by a woman inside the vehicle. The bullet tears through his abdomen and blood begins pouring from the wound. Mr. White finds the wounded Orange and helps him escape. Orange begs desperately to be taken to a hospital, but White insists they must stick to the plan. White drives them to the predetermined warehouse rendezvous point. At the warehouse, White removes Orange's jacket and shirt to examine the gunshot wound. Blood pools on the concrete floor. Orange screams in pain as White tries to stop the bleeding with towels and rags. Orange whispers repeatedly that he's dying. White comforts him, promises to get medical attention, and treats him like family. He tells Orange he's going to be okay. Mr. Pink arrives at the warehouse in a panic. He paces back and forth, chain-smoking cigarettes and ranting about the police ambush. Pink is convinced the job was a setup because the police response was too perfect. Pink tells White he's hidden the stolen diamonds nearby but won't reveal the location until they figure out who betrayed them. He delivers more bad news, and Mr. Brown is dead and Mr. Blue and Mr. Blonde are missing. White becomes furious when Pink mentions that Blonde murdered several innocent bystanders during the robbery. White calls Blonde a psychopath and questions why Joe would use someone so unpredictable. An argument breaks out between White and Pink over getting medical help for Orange. White wants to take him to a hospital immediately because he feels responsible for Orange getting shot. Pink argues they should wait for Joe to arrive with a doctor, but he's suspicious about why their boss isn't there yet. The argument escalates until both men draw guns on each other. They circle around the warehouse with weapons raised, shouting threats. They're about to shoot when Mr. Blonde suddenly arrives. Blonde drags an unconscious police officer named Marvin Nash through the warehouse door. Nash's face is bloodied from the beating Blonde gave him during the kidnapping. Blonde drops the officer's body in the center of the room. He recently completed a 4-year prison sentence. During that time, he never gave up Joe's name to authorities, even when prosecutors offered reduced sentences. Prison guards made deals. District attorneys promised lighter punishment, but Blonde said nothing. To reward this loyalty, Joe and Eddie offered Blonde a comfortable, legitimate job after his release. But Blonde wanted to return to crime, so the Cabots recruited him for this jewelry store job. White and Pink begin interrogating Officer Nash. They splash cold water on his face to wake him up. Nash opens his eyes and sees 3 armed criminals standing over him. Nash begs them not to kill him, saying he has a wife and children. He denies having any prior knowledge of their robbery, insisting he was just doing his job and ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Eddie arrives at the warehouse and orders White and Pink to come with him to dispose of the getaway vehicles. This is standard procedure to eliminate evidence. Eddie's command leaves Blonde alone in the warehouse with the unconscious Orange and the captive Officer Nash. Nash continues denying he knows anything about the robbery setup, but Blonde doesn't seem interested in extracting information. He appears to enjoy having complete power over another human being. Blonde ties Nash to a chair with rope, testing the knots to ensure they're secure. Nash struggles against the restraints, but they're too tight to break. Blonde walks to a small radio and turns on music. He tells Nash he doesn't understand why people call this music oldies, since it's not that old. Blonde begins dancing while pulling out a straight razor. He talks to Nash conversationally as he opens the blade, mentioning something about torture. Blonde slashes Nash's face with the razor, creating a deep cut from ear to mouth. Nash screams in agony while Blonde continues dancing to the music. Blonde grabs Nash's left ear and slices it off with a razor. Nash's screams echo through the warehouse. Blonde holds up the severed ear like a trophy and asks Nash if the experience was as good for him. He walks outside to his car and returns with a gasoline can. Nash begs for his life as Blonde unscrews the cap, pleading that he's told them everything he knows. Just as Blonde prepares to pour gasoline on Nash and set him on fire, the wounded Mr. in Orange suddenly sits up and shoots Blonde multiple times in the chest. Blonde staggers backwards, surprised by the gunshots. He looks down at the blood spreading across his shirt, then collapses to the floor dead. After killing Blonde, Orange reveals his true identity to Officer Nash. Orange whispers that he's a cop, an undercover officer whose real name is Freddie Neuendijk. He tells Nash that backup will arrive when Joe comes to the warehouse. Nash looks at Orange with recognition. He says he knew Orange was a cop and could tell, but was trying not to blow his cover. Nash protected Orange's identity even while being tortured. When Eddie, Pink, and White return from disposing of the cars, Orange tells them a lie about why he shot Blonde. Orange claims Blonde revealed a plan to kill everyone and steal the diamonds for himself. Orange describes a fictional conversation where Blonde explained his intention to wait for their return, then shoot all of them and take the jewels. Eddie doesn't believe Orange's story. He shouts that Blonde was solid and trustworthy. Eddie knows Blonde proved his loyalty during 4 years in prison by never giving up Joe's name. Convinced that Orange is lying about Blonde's intentions, Eddie walks over to the wounded Officer Nash. Nash looks up with pleading eyes, asking for medical attention because he's badly hurt. Eddie pulls out his gun and shoots Nash in the head. The police officer dies instantly. Joe arrives at the warehouse with more devastating news. The police killed Mr. Blue during his escape attempt 3 blocks from the jewelry store. Joe's suspicions now focus on Orange as the most likely police informant. Joe studies Orange's face, looking for signs of deception. He tells Orange he thinks Orange is the rat who betrayed them. Joe points out that Orange was shot but survived and would have had access to the detailed information the police obviously possessed about their operation. Orange protests weakly that the accusation is crazy and reminds Joe that he's bleeding to death. Joe prepares to execute Orange for being the traitor, but Mr. White intervenes. White steps between Joe and Orange with his gun drawn, warning Joe not to point his weapon at Orange. White refuses to believe Orange could be an undercover cop. He holds Joe at gunpoint while insisting Orange is innocent, pointing out that Orange took a bullet for the job. Eddie aims his gun at White to protect his father, Joe. This creates a 3-way standoff where Joe has his gun on Orange, White has his gun on Joe, and Eddie has his gun on White. The warehouse becomes completely silent except for heavy breathing. Everyone knows that pulling any trigger means multiple deaths, but none can back down. White demands Joe put his gun down. Joe tells White to put his down first. Eddie says nobody has to die while keeping his finger on the trigger. The shooting starts suddenly. All 3 guns fire simultaneously. Joe dies instantly from White's shot to the chest. Eddie dies from a bullet through his lung. White is wounded in the stomach but survives. During the chaos, Mr. Pink grabs the bag of stolen diamonds and runs toward the warehouse exit. As he flees, sounds of a car crash and gunshots come from outside, suggesting Pink has been caught or killed by police surrounding the building. Inside the warehouse, White crawls over to the dying Orange. They're alone now, surrounded by dead bodies. Police sirens grow closer. White cradles Orange in his arms and whispers that Orange will be okay. Orange's breathing becomes more labored with each passing moment. Orange makes his final confession. He tells White his real name is Larry and admits he's a cop. Orange looks directly into White's eyes as he speaks. White stares at Orange in complete shock. His face transforms as he realizes the young man he treated like a son has been deceiving him from the beginning. Orange doesn't need to confess since he's dying anyway and police are seconds away, but he chooses to tell the truth in his final moments. White's hands shake as he holds Orange. He raises his gun to Orange's head with trembling fingers. Police storm the warehouse with weapons drawn, shouting for White to drop his weapon. Instead of surrendering, White looks down at Orange one final time and pulls the trigger. The police immediately open fire on White, killing him instantly. The warehouse falls silent except for officers securing the scene. Everyone is dead except possibly Mr. Pink, whose fate after the escape attempt remains unknown. What did you think of Orange's final confession to White? Please share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more complete movie breakdowns.